it's going to be a little bit longer presentation, so if you guys hold the questions till the end, we'll do about 10 minutes at the end, a little bit to hold the question and answer. So introduction, I want to give you a little bit about the company background, talk a little bit about what Bell Helicopter does, how we're utilizing the system, and the transformation that we've done through business systems modernization, and the tools we're using to help augment some of those areas, and then the challenges that we face with the system. So Bell Helicopter has commercial and military segments, and majority of our customer support. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Bell Helicopter, but we do the V-22 Osprey. That's our mainstay Sapphire, and we also do the OH-58. We're recently getting into 525, which is the commercial environment, and 505, which is a jet Ranger. We're about 45%, it's almost 50-50 right now. Global footprint, we're about 9,000 employees. We have integrated ops, quality, legal, the normal organization processes and systems that we go through our systems. Locations that we have are Amarillo is our facility for military installations and assembly. Fort Worth is our global headquarters. Fort Worth is where we manufacture blades and all the rotors, as well as the drive system centers. And then in Canada, we do the military commercial. Military and commercial. So background. So we've used, Bell Helicopter was using the old mainframe for 40 years. We're 80 years old this year. So we utilized the old legacy systems, and they made a decision to go live with 3 new systems, which is SAP, CAMS, and Innowera. That was a big hurdle for us. We went through 3 years of implementation, and we're still experiencing some of the issues that we experienced with the legacy system, just because we're learning. We've had 40 years to learn on the legacy systems, and now we're learning with the new systems. And one of the things that is our staple is SAP. Obviously, we're here for SAP, but how do we didn't realize what we were getting into when we got the SAP, so to talk about what we ended up going through that. So we're going down this way. So the executives got together and they said, well, are we going to go BSM? Are we going to phase it out of 5-10 years, or are we going to do Big Bang? They made a decision to go Big Bang, and that Big Bang was huge. We basically gutted our whole systems, our PLM systems with Innowera, which is the salt organization. We gutted the manufacturing system, which is Visiprise and CAMS, which SAP then eventually bought, and then SAP for all of our ERP systems. So the reason we wanted to do that was because we wanted to minimize the impact. The main reason why we did that on the Big Bang was because of the number of interfaces that we would have had to have redone every single time we would try to incorporate new systems. And of course, there's many other reasons, but one of the main reasons, another reason that we ended up going Big Bang was our CDO came in, John Garrison came in and said, how much does it cost to build a helicopter? He has 5 different people and got 5 different answers. So I'm sure that's not uncommon with legacy systems, but that's what we ended up having. He says, we need to go with an integrated enterprise system. So that's what we're going to do. So what did we replace? Our business systems modernization, we replaced 3 applications. It was 389 applications. Through a company of 9,000. So that's quite a bit, but it even gets worse. 98,000 interfaces. With 620 rehost tables, so every organization, quality, manufacturing, planning, the government, EVMS, they all had their own rehosting tables. And so we had 2,500 shadow IT systems. So everybody in the organization was doing something different because they were taking the data from the rehost table and they were answering the question that was asked to them specifically. So that's why we went through this whole BSM process. So this is kind of the landscape of our SAP. You'll notice that everything integrates with SAP. So our master data was huge. And we had 24 people that were running our master data systems before. So we had to figure out a way to do more with less. So this is our application landscape. And you'll notice that every one of the systems has an integration within our SAP. And SAP handled our master data systems. So what did that mean? We had to transform 400 systems into master data. That was data migration, which you guys, if anybody's ever done data migration, it's ugly. It's difficult, especially from the legacy systems, because you could have a vendor, I'll use an example, you could have a vendor AH213 or AH-213 or AH213-4 machine. But there's so many different variants of that. And we found that the IT organization really didn't understand that. So our business knew that going through this whole migration. And they weren't really part of the migration. It was tough because they had to run the business. So the IT organizations and the consultants that we brought on helped us with that. We're suffering heavily because of that. But we're cleaning it up. And so this is something that, there's a good story behind this, obviously. And then data cleansing. What does that mean? Cleaning up all the data so it actually does fit into the SAP environment. An example would be the material. From an Innowera, we had to use 13 digits with that. SAP couldn't handle 13 digits, so we ended up having to go to 16. So we had to go and upgrade to get the 16-digit model. Then tooling. Tooling was, they say, as a part number. Well, tooling really wasn't a part number, but that's the way it was utilized. So they didn't really understand that tooling gets consumed, reused, and so forth. So those are some of the challenges that we kind of ran into. How do we archive the data that we already had? That was another issue. Data ownership, who owned it? We didn't even know who owned the data at that point in time because of all these different systems, and we tried to integrate everything. Standard work and standardization and rules and processes. Nobody put that stuff together very well because the business didn't really understand what they were getting and didn't understand the enterprise approach. The IT organization didn't really understand it, so we did the best we could, and now we're going through iterations and iterations of cleaning that standardization up. And then, obviously, the conflict resolutions. So we went from 98,000 interfaces to about 120. So that tells you the scalability that we've gone through. Taking all of that information and transferring it back and forth to the different systems, which, by the way, use different data models, has been very challenging. So the categories of Bell's master data is all the part numbers, the data that comes with the part numbers, all your customer data, again, which we talked about, the vendor, the suppliers, all of that information was in different systems, and it was called something different. It was named something different. We call material part number we call a part. I mean, it just, the list goes on and on and on about the issues that we kind of ran into. The financial data, even though we went procure to pay 3 years earlier, we were just using that portion of it from the financial data. Then we had to integrate that in within our SAP. The supplier data. We're struggling right now to get our supplier information and having our suppliers use the same information that we're using, so it simplifies it. But we're getting there. The people data, that's all from PeopleSoft, and it's based upon a Textron environment. So the Textron has certain systems that they utilize that we have to integrate with. The shop order data, that's huge. The location data, where things are at. We went from COEs, which we call Center of Excellences, to plants. And Fort Worth had 4 COEs, and now we've got 1 plant. So they consolidated these areas into one. Lead times and planning, and then organizational data. So those are what we kind of consider our master data. So we needed something that would utilize a process that could take all of the data cleansing, all the data migration, all of that information that we needed from a business standpoint to really incorporate back into SAP and clean that up. So we try to keep a few things. We like benchmark different companies. And this is an example. Warehouse worker goes, put inventory away. But the material doesn't have a bin location. So What's the bin location? We got to go figure that out. Well, we know what it is, so what do? We pull out the Excel, right? We type in all the bin locations, and we go, okay, now we're going to go take that, now we're going to go put it in the transactional-based SAP. So that's one issue. A new finished good entered into the system has no sales view, allowing the item to be stocked for months. Sometimes we're trying to track these parts. We can't find them because of the data being so important. You need to understand where that data, where that information is. Customer calls asking for a product they ordered months earlier. No sales order couldn't be found. Wasn't processed correctly. Those are kind of issues. And from a supplier standpoint, they all call asking for a payment, and the AP clerk says, what's the vendor in the new system? May not know what that vendor. Well, we've gone to a numbering system, so now the vendor number. So now you need the decoder ring, which I call. So you need the decoder ring for the number, right, to understand what that supplier name is. So those are the kind of issues that we kind of ran into. This is kind of an overview of our old systems and our new systems. And all of this information just interacts. And we needed some kind of way of really understanding what this was and getting some processes and some governance around it. So just to take a look at what the number of units that we're looking at, the products that we see pretty much on a daily basis. It's over $2.5 million, or 2.5 million number of different material accounts that we kind of go through. So the solutions that we've chosen, just to kind of give you an overview, is we've tried to come up with a cradle-to-grave solution because we didn't purchase every SAP module. Quite frankly, the business doesn't even know what they did purchase. So that's the other issue, right? We don't know what's available and what's not available. You find out when you ask, did we get this module? Oh, you didn't get that module. Oh, okay, so what do we need to do? We still got to use that processes and systems. So those are the kind of things that we've kind of run into. So we set out to try to figure out how do we get master data? What does that mean to us, and how do we govern it? And so we had 24 people doing the jobs, and quite frankly, the person in this cube didn't know what that person over in that cube did, right? There was no standardization, so we ended up trying to figure out how we can go ahead and do this. It doesn't look like it's. Well, you can see it's off the screen. So what you see over here is you've got engineering, finance, manufacturing, i.e., ME, quality programs, supply chain, sales, and CSS. CSS is our customer support sales, supply chain, and quality. So all of that information needed to be integrated. So we had to understand what was important, what needed to be secure, what wasn't, and put a process around that. So conclusion. So we established a master data team. What do you always do? You put a governance board, right? Let's put a board together and govern this. So that's what we ended up doing. And they came up with the processes and policies because that was very critical to try to start the road up of standardizing our work. It was a significant investment. So we spent upwards of $250 million with our new systems, and yet we still had all of these struggles. So we were a little frustrated with that. And not understanding since we were new to SAP, we didn't understand what was available, so we started searching and researching and doing benchmarking, finding out what other organizations did. So we put a commitment together and we said, okay, we're going to commit to data integrity, which is really good because data drives what your business is going to be doing. Data drives what your future is going to look like. Data drives what predictability you need to go for, what programs we're going to go after. So that was one of the main things we did. So we purchased a second vendor called ClickView to bring in some of that data and look at it from a visual representation. We want to make sure we had the right people. So we had business people on the master data team. And then we had to stabilize. So to stabilize it, we needed to assist them with their daily work. How do we do that? We didn't have a tool that would allow them to update data quickly. So what do? We went to LSMWs. How many people have used LSMWs? How many people like LSMWs? That's what I thought. So basically what happens is the IT writes the script, right? And they run it. Well, that's exactly what we did. We gave it to the IT, the script. They brought in a college kid, and he ran it. Guess what he ran? The wrong script, because it wasn't governed. So it messed up millions of records. So we had to back that out. We had to go get some expert that knew how to do backing out of that data. And when you're in SAP, when we updated that, guess what happens? It goes out to all these tentacles, right? You don't even know what you've messed up, quite frankly. And so you learn as you go. So LSMWs was the way we were kind of approaching it. So we need to be able to do that, but we need to do it from a business perspective. And we need to do that more with less. I mean, our whole organization keeps on shrinking. It seems like every day there's something new coming down that says, oh, we have to minimize the number of people because we have to do more with less. That's the chart. And when we went through the BSM implementations, they had a specific cost return, right? And how do you get cost return on the new incorporated? You lose heads. Unfortunately, that's the way it was. But it also needs to be simple. So, what are the challenges that we're facing today? So, talk a little bit about what we're facing today. We wanted to understand how do we get better at this, at the data migrations, at the data integrity. How do we get better at the governance? We started looking at different organizations. We started going out third party. We said, okay, we're going to go look at Shuttle. We're going to go look at Innowera. We're going to go look at all these different organizations. And we had specific requirements. And our specific requirements were met head on with this company called Innowera. So it allowed the line of business to perform the work. That was key because of the LSMW debacle, because of IT bringing in, no knock on IT. There's no knock on IT. They serve a perfect function. It's just that they don't understand the business. And if you don't understand the business, they can't make the decisions when it needs to be done, especially when they're running it at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? They need to be able to work within the confines of our current roles. So SAP is a role-based product, and so each area has roles. Certain people can do certain things. Certain people can see different things. But we had to make sure that that tool that we got actually performed that function. And it had to improve our efficiency. It had to be accurate, and it had to give us the feedback quickly on the issues that we ran into. So the error detection had to be at that point when we were running it. And then it had to be able to clean up large amounts of data. Because our master data team probably runs 2.5 billion changes to a certain extent a week. So there's a lot of data going through. Because we're constantly finding things that we didn't do correctly when we did the cleanup or when we did the migration. So it's getting a lot better. I mean, it's minimized quite a bit. And then we had to be able to track errors and issues. So I like to use this slide because this is where we were at. We were the cavemen using the legacies. And for 40 years, we did that. And we had the people that were COBOL programmers and the people that could make the difference quickly and fast in their old habitat, so to speak. Well, then we went to R3, which was released Enterprise, and we were already at procure to pay at that point in time. And then we went to Big Bang with release 4. So the next thing is how our master data, SAP master data team. So now we're kind of learning how to walk. And what I mean by that is literally we've gone from 24 people, like I said earlier, to 4 that are running on this. There was no way we could have done that at all without a third-party tool that we needed. So, but we continue, we're continuing to experience cost pressures. And so, who knows if that team's going to be good on 2 next month. And that's a high possibility. So, we need to make sure that we're learning and being more cost efficient. So, SOS signal. And luckily, we had a company that came in and actually listened to us, heard our requirements, understood, and actually repeated them back, and then provided us with a solution with that. And that spoke volumes, because we were getting other people, other organizations like we're downstairs, looking at their saying, this is what you need. You don't really know what I need until you heard my requirements. And then did you really understand my requirements? And did you really listen to my requirements? Those were key for us. Okay. They quickly identify errors for us in data, so we can find that information. It is an optimal automated architecture that is flexible in order to react quickly to all of our market opportunities. For a perfect example is we're going to accelerate, we're going to add 20 new helicopters. Well, to do that, that comes with a price of updating everything about our master data, right? Oh, that 20 just went to 10, so now you got to decelerate, okay? You have to react quickly with these, so the information gets put out to all of your systems so they can operate quickly. And it needed to be for the line of business. So that was key for us, and the fact that the IT actually accepted using this, which was a feat in itself, to be honest with you, because they want to govern everything. But we showed them. They brought in the IT organization and the organization that we brought in. They met with them, and when they met with them, they became comfortable with their solution. And we said we can break this down in phases, and we can show them we're going to update two lines of data. We're going to update 10, 20 until we get good at it. So our governance model kind of put that together, and as long as we had a governance model, we followed it, IT had no problem, because we weren't tapping into any issues. The LS&W process was taxing our systems. It was taking down our systems, and the usability on the floor for that was not very good. So there was a lot of arguments, a lot of calls to our CEO or CIO saying, how come our systems aren't working, and so forth. So this worked better than taxing our systems. And, we wanted to do it without coding, because the business doesn't really want to code, right? So innovation is the key. So I was tasked to make sure that we had a cradle-to-grave solution. So the cradle-to-grave solution included 3 different systems that we're using. We used a .NET solution, okay, a customized solution that allowed us to take the information from SAP and CAMS and incorporate that together. So an example would be, we wanted to pull the scheduled standards out for the production work. We wanted to pull the operations out of our MES systems. So we combined that from a .NET. Well, then you have to have a report out. So we used ClickView for reporting out, okay? But we also needed information. So once we got that, we got to the point where we were looking at it. We said, okay, now we see where we're really at. How do we clean it up? Well, the business hands us an Excel spreadsheet and goes, here, go clean this up. So guess what? We needed a tool that helped us clean that up. And that was the tool that we're using, which was Process Runner. So Process Runner out of Innowera was kind of a savior for us. It allowed us to do a bunch of different things that we didn't even know we needed to do before. But they didn't push that on us. They asked us, what do you need? And they served that purpose for us, knowing full well that we were going to need other things, because they're much more in depth with SAP than we were. So after we demoed it with different companies, we came up with the solution, which was Process Runner. It was scalable, it was very cost efficient. As a matter of fact, our return on investment for our business paid for itself in the first implementation that we used it. To me, that spoke volumes. And by the way, it's easy. If I can use it, anybody can use it. It's easy to use. Like I said, the cost entry was a small investment for us. Support and customer service for this organization has been probably the best I've seen throughout my 27 years of working in aerospace and defense. the response time is better than our own IT organization. She laughs because she's a Bell, so she understands that this is true. They help us. If they help us with the scripting, they help us in walking us through the processes. They understand SAP. They even give you a recording if you ask them to record it from a video recording, so you can play it back as a training aid, which has been phenomenal. So I've been utilizing that. So these are some of the things that Process Runner allows, and we're gonna see a demo here in a few. But the Process Runner gives us the flexibility to make the complex simple. I can take 20 different transactions and put it in an Excel spreadsheet in columns, and I can update that information to 1 to 1 million records. And I'm going to get into what we actually utilized it for here shortly, which was completely different than what we bought it for. And I'll talk about that here in a second. It provides us with error detection. So it gives you real-time error response that, hey, you didn't do that right. You didn't put the information right. And it doesn't tax our systems. It's like you're working 100 miles an hour as in entering the transactions. It's user-friendly, it works with our current processes, and quite frankly, I think it's worth every penny that we paid for it. And like I said earlier, when issues do arise, their support is typically within 8 hours, or the scheduling, the system level agreement that we agreed upon. Results. Like I said, we found a tool that created, changed, managed, and downloaded data in mass. The other benefits of it, it became a data extraction. So I'm sure SAP has the ability, I think it's, and don't get me wrong, but I think it's transaction, SQ what?
SQVI.
SQVI, okay. That pulls out from data extractions. But guess what? Our IT department cut that out for the business. So we didn't have a data dictionary. So we had to get a data dictionary. So we pulled a data extraction out of the system from a master data perspective, and we created our own data dictionary. And it's been great. So being able to provide that information to our users has been part of it. And like I said, we've only begun just understanding the power and what the capability of this tool does. Just at the minimal of what we're using, which was the Process Runner. So we purchased Process Runner and Designer license. We have a few Designer licenses, but the Designer license are the people on the business side. So where are we using it? Again, we're using it every single day on our master data. The master data team will tell you there's no way in God's creation that we could do the amount of work without this tool that is required with the number of people we have. We use it for the tooling department. So the tooling department had to clean up lots and lots of data. We had over 540,000 tools. So cleaning up data, updating the locations, putting it in the right spot, that stuff, once you have a baseline of communication or cleanup of that information, then you can move forward with a lot of the correct analysis. So production engineering, we're actually using it as an application to augment some of the work that's being done. So we've integrated SharePoint and workflows, so forth with that. So we're automating that in production engineering. Manufacturing. Recently, we just wrote a script for dispatching. In our infinite wisdom, we said every part has to be planned. Well, we built shims for our drive system center. Well, that process took 2.5 hours, just a communication process between the dispatching group and between the RAs, which are called resource analysts, of releasing the part and releasing the order. We ended up writing a script that augmented both of that, and it takes us less than 2 seconds. So the power is just amazing. And we build 50 shims a week. So 50 shims times 2 hours of training, you do the math. It's pretty mind-boggling. But this is really what we ended up running with. So we brought a new guy back in from master scheduling. And our master schedule, we were doing forward scheduling. Big no-no, we know now, right? Obviously. And forward scheduling took away the baseline. We learned that the hard way. So our forward scheduling took away all of our baselines from our scheduling, but we ended up coming back and we said, okay, we're going to reset based upon what we now know. And the tool that we utilized was the Innowera tool, and we would not have been able to do a massive rescheduling effort, which really took us a weekend to do, and it baselined everything. It's been really an amazing, and our data shows that we're right on track for that. Here's kind of the makeup of what we have. So we've got 30 scripts written for master data, 18 scripts for updating single field records, and 12 scripts for updating multiple text records. Production engineering, we have ROA status, loss status, tool inventory, tool order closures. Those are the applications that we're using it. Tool classifications, we have to change the tool classifications. And mass tool movements. So we do the 201, the 202, and the 501. We use the scripting for that. For our integrated business planning, we use that for the ECD reset, like I said. Our master scheduling. So our master schedule, we only have 3 master schedules now, and each one of those are utilizing this tool on a weekly basis. So we've automated that from a .NET solution. We've taken that .NET solution, exported that information out into an Excel spreadsheet. That Excel spreadsheet then gets automatically loaded and really hands-off for our Innowera system, because you can schedule the runs. So that's another benefit that we ran into. We keep on discovering all these new tools and these new methods and the processes that they have, and it just gets better and better, it seems like, for us. In dispatching, I've talked about the shim process, auto-release parts for the shim, and then goods receipt and updating transactions. So that's what we're using Process Runner for right now. How much have we saved? I know this seems crazy to see 99%, but it's true. I mean, the amount of time and effort that we've saved is astronomical about utilizing this tool. And I'm not a sales rep by any means, so don't think about that, because we use ClickView, and ClickView is a great tool, but that's for reporting. We use our .NET solution, which takes the information, but we're not changing the source systems. We're not updating anything. Everything still has to be transacted in SAP or in our Visiprise or in Innovia. So that's the power of this. And so we truly have saved a ton of hours in man hours. Our tooling organization came to me and said it would have taken us a year and a half of man hours to do what they did in 5 days. So it's just, it speaks volumes. And once you guys start putting the numbers together, you'll see that it's crazy. I mean, I'm a big fan of improving efficiencies and cost savings, and by far what we've used it for. This is what we've used it for. I know there's probably, I get calls on a daily basis. Can I get the new license? Can I get a license? Can I get a license? Can I get a license? Right? Because Amarillo's starting to see the power of it. We just deployed it into our COE, or ACC, which is accepting all of the plies. We build plies for our rotors, and the transaction process from Amarillo to ACC. In that process, we used .NET and we used Innowera. And it saved them inputting 54,000 plies. Now, let me set this up a little bit, because I think this is important to understand. So those plies go on a production order. You're supposed to input that information into SAP, so then SAP triggers, oh, you've utilized that ply, now I need to go order another, right? I need to go order another ply. But guess what, guys? Our people weren't putting that in because it was time consuming. So they have a stack of 54,000 products that they have an input. We're going to go, we did a massive update, and we're updating that information. Now we've given them a tool to allow them to update it automatically in the transactions. So that is just a new, it happened last week. So they're starting to go live with that. Again, we're experiencing new things every time. So here's the benefits, obviously. I've talked about them. Scripts are easily written. So we have the line of business who's able to write the scripts. And you'll see how easy it is because we're going to run a demo. Many used for massive updates. We don't have to that's the other thing, we don't have to babysit. So once you write the script and you see how it works, you can leave. So I didn't even catch that. And then, by the way, you can still work in SAP and do your normal work while it's still running. You can run them remotely. So one of our master data team, he kind of works from home. He runs the scripts automatically. And again, they don't tax against the 6-screen limit, which I just discovered with Personas a while back. So, additional benefits that we keep on running into. Automating transactions that are not normally automatable. Create projects in WBS elements. Closing cost centers. Maintain product groups and update the custom fields. So that's the other thing. SAP doesn't recognize all the customization that different organizations do. So you have to update the screens. Well, it doesn't make a difference to the product that we're using in Innowera. That was another benefit. So we updated a estimated completion date, custom screen. It automatically updates that information. No special security needed to run transactions. That's another thing was it looks at my credentials and the role that I have or the role that the master data team has and only allows them to update the information that they can currently update anyway. So that's a huge benefit as well. I already talked about that. Yeah. So because we're using SAP and it's someone is working on the computer, all interfaces. Oh, that was huge. Sorry. So when we ran the LSMWs, that was in the background, and so all those the new 110 interfaces that we had, they weren't getting updated. So I don't know. I'm not an IT person from that perspective, but they ran the LSMWs. It changed it in SAP, but it didn't change it in our Visiprise or CAMS. It didn't change that information. Well, that was important information from the dates to the schedule to the production, all of that stuff. Well, LSMW we discovered, and we had to discover that over the course. We're going, why isn't this matching up? Well, we ended up finding out LSMW doesn't turn on the interfaces. Let me back up. It didn't for us at that point in time. I know you can do it because they can do it now, but it didn't for us. So we discovered that. But with our system, with the Innowera approach, it's like you're sitting at the computer. It triggers all the interfaces like that. So it's not an issue. So I'm going to bring AJ up, and he's going to do a short demo. Do you have the connections? This one.
All right, so my name is Ajay Jagtap. I'm from Innowera. I'm a solution engineer here. So I'm going to just do a short demo, a simple one for updating the scheduling margin keys. It's basically we're going to update the material and add scheduling margin keys, which has a defined number of days associated with it. So let me just go to the software. So it's a desktop application. I'm not sure why it's not able to see. So you will see an icon, and once I double click it, let's see.
Hit Windows P. Windows extend.
There it is. All right. So I was saying that it's a desktop application. You will see an icon named as Process Runner. And it looks like this. Now to create a script, we'll create a new script by saying to create a new process and entering a transaction code. It's as simple as that. Once I say start recording, it will ask me my user credentials. It will open a, we call it as iNet connector, It basically reads your SAP logon system, and I'm going to select this system, enter my credentials, and say OK. So it brings up SAP GUI. Here you just enter the data you are trying to enter for that particular script. Before I do this script creation, I'm just going to show you what I'm trying to do here. So I have a list of materials. I'm changing the schedule margin key for every material for about 50 records, right? So basically, I want to enter only three fields here: the material, the plant, and the key. Here I'm going to do basically, just as what you do normally, enter the data, select the basic data in this case, go to MRP2 and change the margin key.
So you click that as double arrows just to show the differences.
Okay. So as you can see, we have 5 different keys. So I'm going to change it from 000 to 001 and just save it. So once I save it, it goes back to the process runner and it creates a script for me. That's it. That's your recording part of this whole process. I'm just going to name it as change and save it. So it generates the script. We call it as a 3-step process. The first step was the recording. The second one is the mapping. And this is where the mapping takes place. What we basically do is, let me just go to the simple view rather than the advanced view, is we have touched these 3 fields when we recorded this transaction: material number, plant, and the key. I need to just make sure that my material number is coming from column A, plant from column B, and the margin key from column C. Now this is the data which I used while recording. I don't want to use this data, I want to use the data which I have in this Excel sheet. Right, so I'm going to go to the Home tab, click on the Use External File. That's it. So if I go back to the mapper, it will give me the snapshot of that Excel at the bottom. And there it is. Now in this Excel, I have few incorrect material fields, material numbers. So just keep an eye on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run from row number 2 to row number 5 and just run it. It will again ask me the SAP login credentials. Now, the script is client independent, so you can create the script in a development or quality and run it in the production system. So, let's see, okay. There it is. So the first 2 records give me the written message saying that it is changed. The next 2 give an error, saying something is wrong with the script or the data is incorrect. Now in this case, I know the data is incorrect. But in this case, is second one, there is an information saying that you cannot select the screen for this particular plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make changes to the data which is incorrect first, and then we'll go through that error, which is saying that it cannot select the sales general plan.
So that's the real-time feedback that you get by running it.
All right. So now I'm going to say let's run from 2 to, let's say, 500. Just run. Now the process runner is intelligent enough that it knows that it has only 50 records, so it's not going to run all 500 lines. It's just going to stop after 50. The first two it will say no change made because I reran it. Okay. So apparently we have a few errors here. The mistake I did in this error was, if I go to the advanced view, is I selected the general plan, right? So that's why it is not giving or not changing for few materials. So what I'm going to do is,
This is typically the things that we had to go through with learning. We understood that, oh, well, SAP called that the general plan, it's not the plan that we're using. Those are the kind of issues that we kind of face. And so these are real life situations that we ran into.
now if you want to make a change to the script, it's as simple as copying and pasting. It's not a significant change you want to make to the script, so I'm just copying and pasting it out here. There it is. So I made the changes. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to process all the material again. I just want to process the ones which gave an error. So we have something called as error processing run. It's just going to check the status message. It's just going to confirm that the status column is in D. I'm going to say OK here and let it run. So it's going to only check the ones which are errored out in the previous run and make the changes to those. Okay. Still good.
I don't think we have those plans.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a material document, so I think that's
They pressed enter while.
But the thing about this is specifically is it allows you you don't have to go in script. That was the main thing about it. So we use just point and map, which we can all do all day long. But if the data set is correct, it's easy to update and change to when you're working on that. So that was kind of the benefit that we ran into. We ran through some growing pains and learning things. And we call it Innowera and say, hey, we need some help with this. And they were right on the phone and walking us through it. They come in, they're able to see what we're doing. It's been really helpful. Like I said, the benefit of it is really not having to have IT support and calling them up and asking them, hey, can you help us? Now, they're aware of the tool and they're okay with us having it, and they understand the support model. But at this point in time, we've really not had to integrate them too much. Kind of open it up for a few questions. Yes, sir.
Can we run this in background?
Yeah, so that's the idea. So it actually runs in the background while you can actually do the work on SAP. So that's another benefit that we ran into.
And can we use that in screen splits branches and all that. When SAP on the left hand side, you have like split screen where you expand thing and
The AV trees.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
so we have a technology called GUI scripting, so we can use that and work with the AV trees as well.
So what version of SAP are you guys running?
We're on.
So are you responsible for?
We've got HANA as far as that portion of it, but we're running R3. I think it's R3.
You guys are on.
I think it's R3.
What version of it?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Give me the line. Send me an email and I'll respond back to you.
So do you need to have .NET?
You do not. No, absolutely
In order
not.
to
No.
have this?
No, I was telling you to go to a solution, so first of all, I'm not a sales representative for Innowera, but I wanted to kind of talk about the tool that we did use that's allowing us to update the transactions. With the .NET solution, we brought in to bring in the various data sets from a user experience standpoint, so our shop floor can actually assign the work to their operators. That was kind of where we're at with that. And then from the ECD standpoint, the estimated completion date, we use the .NET solution to pull in, we have a product called Factory Planner that pulls in our capacity analysis, so we can actually tell the customer when they're supposed to expecting it, as opposed to what the basic finish date was. So that's kind of where we, yes ma'am.
Can you set up different levels of access
To the user has an Excel add-in, there's a process runner, it hits a button, it points it to that, and it automatically updates. So, good question. Yes, sir.
When did you do the upgrade? How long ago?
We went through SAP implementation in February of 2013. So it's been a 2-year approach.
And why did you choose Innovia?
Did you try with?
You want me to give the real answer, or
Yeah.
I don't know the real
Or
answer.
we can talk afterwards if you like. If you
Yeah,
want.
we can definitely talk about it. There was some major challenges that we ran into. It was a struggle. It was an argument between when we were doing BSM implementations. But in the end, we had a very strong rep for Innovia who, because we were using Matrix 1, kind of we were product in Matrix 1, and Matrix 1 kind of went into the Innovia portion of it. And then engineering actually was heavily engaged into our BSM, and so I think that's why we went that route.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How complex the transaction?
You can do very complex transactions, or you can do simple transactions. When I do complex, I call them help, and they walk me through. Yes.
In the demo, you showed an example of obtaining schedule margin key, right? Say you found there were some errors. What tools are you using to find those errors?
So
Just to do the mass update.
it's more of the business, understanding the data. And so what's good about the error messaging, actually 9 times out of 10 it makes sense of what the error is. When we're in LSMWs, we didn't know the errors that we were getting. It was so figure that out. So it's more intuitive at this point, but it's really the business understanding the data and understanding what they're going through, and they're saying, oh, I see this. Or if they don't understand it, they ask the right person that does understand it. So, any other questions?
How big was your big and then